Hi, my name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses with Healthy Black Women and the Black Homeschool. I'm here today with my good friend Shaquita Graham from Loving the Black Man. And today, obviously, this is another segment of Your Black Women, where Black women keep it real. And today, the topic of our conversation is, just looking at my notes here, the bastardization of Black public figures. And how this topic came about is we were having a discussion about Sartjie Bartman, the South African Khoisan woman who it's being reported widely that Beyonce is actually taking on that story, and I'm not sure how it's shaping up, but it sounds like she's writing the story and plans to star in the movie that will come out from that story. And it led to other things where we started talking about, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and how she has now, just days after she has passed away, is being turned into this woman who we thought of as an activist, a prolific activist for the Black community, and is now just being reduced to a homophobic quack. And then, there are other people and other thoughts that we'll share who, we have to ask that question. Are we seeing a trend of the bastardization of Black public figures where you take people who may have done good things, not who may have done good things, who have done good things, and then we take their image and bastardize it? So Shaquita is a great person to talk to because she has a lot of views about this. And one of the things that we talked about is, we're both homeschooling moms, and we teach, obviously, Black history, African history and African American history to our children. And it's so important that we do a good job, a very important job of showing our children that just as much as they can admire white people in history who have done great things, we can find just as many Black people, African or African American, who have also done great things, and we don't have to bastardize them the way that white media often does. So, Shaquita, what are your thoughts on the Sartjie Bartman story and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing?
Well, there's a lot to say. First of all, I hold both these women in high regard, and I have a lot of reverence. I have a lot of admiration for who they are, and I would never even come from a perspective to really try to critique them or judge them. I would come from just a standpoint of admiration, hoping that I can grasp a little bit of what their intellect and what their life has brought to the world. So when I see the images of Black people in many of these stories, and you can take it all the way to music and things like that, bastardized, as you say, basically a situation where their greatness isn't pulled out of the story, but rather it's who they are demeaned in the story and in the media. I mean, now the reports of Beyonce playing this role are not confirmed, and we don't know how it's going to happen. But traditionally speaking, when we see our images, it's always whitewashed, dulled down, dumbed down, or just not even told in a true fashion. I mean, you can go all the way back to somebody like a Marcus Garvey, being reduced to a con artist when this man had several businesses, cleaners, doll factories, all of these different things, had a plan for empowerment of the Black community. Then you have Sarah Bartman, who was basically kidnapped, held in a cage, and, used as a coming attraction in
a circus
what
monkey.
Was like
I
a
always
zoo.
say they made a circus monkey out of her.
Right. And so, my thing is, if you're going to tell that story, then the main characters need to be the perpetrators of this crime, this human trafficking, this terror, and this torture. I want to see it from that perspective instead of you showing how someone was tortured to the point that people who are happy about the degradation of Black images really find joy in watching that. So that's the thing. And it's just, I'll end with this for a second because I want to hear what you have to say about this. One thing that when I'm teaching my kids and I'm creating products at atetco.com or lovingtheblackman.com, I think of this, and this is something that Erykah Badu said. She said, we as Black people have to tell our own stories. We have to document our history. And when we allow someone else to document our history, the history becomes twisted and we get written out. We get our noses blown off in the scenario. So that summarizes how I feel about it in general. What were your thoughts when you saw it?
Well, my reaction to the Sartjie Bartman story was, I'm not a huge Beyonce fan. But I like her in her lane, in the sense that I think that she is an amazing performer. I think she's actually even a remarkable businesswoman, because she has been successful in a way that most people who are as talented or even more talented than her, they just don't get to the level that she's at. But I think she's a singer and a performer first, okay? Now, a movie writer and an actress, I'm not so sure. And then we're going to stretch it all the way to a Khoi woman in South Africa. I don't know. It made me feel uncomfortable. Even if somebody else was writing it and Beyonce was supposed to portray her, wait, what? She doesn't look anything like her. It baffles me. It baffles me how I don't see the fit. I don't understand. So my immediate reaction, if I had to summarize it, would be no. That should not be happening. Now, in terms of the bastardization of public Black figures, that's the second level of nervousness that I have. Are they going to tell her story authentically, or are they going to humiliate her again? Even
for
though
someone
she's
else's
passed.
pleasure.
Right. Even though she's long passed. I mean, I know that a lot of people in the last 10 years, there's this glorification of a big behind, okay? Now I'm African, so we've always appreciated a woman with some assets, okay? That's nothing new to me. I just feel like it's been very glorified in American culture, maybe in the last decade or so, where you see women like Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez becoming the topic of conversation because of their butts, okay? And then you see other women like, it's been questioned whether Nicki Minaj did hers. And you see it a lot more now in the last 10 years where women actually doing things to themselves cosmetically to have a big butt. Whereas before that, you got a feeling that people felt like a big butt was ugly and women exercised and tried everything to get rid of the butt. So now it does really, again, make me feel very, very uncomfortable, because now are we saying because Beyonce has a big butt, then that means that she gets to play this woman? I feel uncomfortable. And of course, people are still speculating about whether this is even true. Okay. But it's so widely reported that we have to question whether it didn't just come out of nowhere. And I'm sure as the story unravels, we'll get more information. But to say that I'm uncomfortable about the whole thing is a huge understatement. Then back to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I have to be honest and say I've seen a few video clips of her, but I did not know much about her or her work. And since she has passed, I've done a little more looking into it because of it was so controversial. I remember CNN commentator Mark Lamont Hill, I think that's his name. But anyway, on the day she died, I think he released a tweet or something and started saying, look, we have to talk about the fact that this woman was homophobic, and we can't ignore that her body of work was good, but part of what she was saying was very, very homophobic. And then a lot of people responded with wow, why would you disrespect and dishonor this woman. She's not even warm. She's not even cold, having died, and you're already launching an attack on her. And then there's a group of people who say, no, we're not attacking her. We're balancing. There's that word. We're balancing the conversation about her. Yes, she was
sideways a little bit.
I know you hate that word. We're balancing the conversation about her. People are saying she did all these great things, but let's not forget that she also had a strand of homophobia. And some even said, no, it was not a strand. That was her whole stance. Every time she spoke, she said something homophobic. And that created a lot of controversy, and now people are talking more, it seems, about that than the good work that she has done. So what do you say?
I mean, first of all, Frances Cress Welsing was nothing short of like a genius to me. And it's sad, like Malcolm X said, when the media can have you think that a good person is an evil person and an evil person is a good person. Right. I mean, bottom line, Frances Cress Welsing was educated. She was a expert, just like the attorney Tim McGinty said when he brought all those experts up there to talk about Tamir Rice. She was an expert in her field. So you'll never be able to take that away from her. She was also a class act. She was like one of the most perfect human beings to hit the earth as far as I'm concerned, because she came to people with facts. She didn't come with hate. Correlating her with hatred and degrading people, it just doesn't even fit if you know anything about her work. The bottom line is she got up, she took her education, she took her courage, and she stared evil right in the face. She went directly to Germany and she studied the Holocaust, and she talked to people who believed in that and who were a part of that journey and asked them why they did it. She studied how they did it. So when she brought that information back to the Black community and showed us the parallels, when people wake up, when they're first born, and they wake up in this Black community, in this Black world, and they're wondering, why would somebody feed a Black baby to an alligator? Why would someone chop off a penis of a young Black boy and put it in his mouth? Why would someone dismember a Black person and put it in a showcase, their limbs? Mm-hmm. These are real questions that nobody has taken not nobody, but people like Frances Cress Welsing has taken their entire life to uncover and unearth. She also debated with William Shockley, who was a eugenicist. The eugenics movement has caused a lot of damage that we're seeing today. When we're talking about degrading the Black image, the cornerstone of racism and white supremacy is that the Black person is inferior intellectually, even spiritually, to the point where, people imply that they have no soul. That is why you can take somebody like Sarah Bartman and publicly dissect her body as a show. You can put her genitals on display in a museum, because the argument of eugenicists and people who were basically really a part of that movement in Germany say that Black people are inherently inferior and genetically inferior. Whereas Frances Cress Welsing, because she had the desire to be able to help her people from a mental health standpoint, she went to uncover every layer that was affecting her people. And she found that she clearly stated from medical research that the Black person has a genetically dominant gene, and the white person has a genetically recessive gene. when it's been told to us the other way. To me, she's like that grandmother that says to you, like Maya Angelou says, when she was mute for a period of time, people were saying she was dumb, she was retarded. Her grandmother was saying, baby, I know you're intelligent. I know you're just choosing not to speak. And this woman went on to be a professor in Egypt. She went on to do all the wonderful things she did. And that's how Frances Cress Welsing is. She empowered us to say, I know that they're telling you that you're nothing. They're showing you in the media and all these advertisements and all these movies that you're stupid, that you can't be anything. But in fact, you are. You have a genetically dominant gene, and you have the ability to be more than anybody can even tell you about. I mean, your potential is unlimited. So, I mean, I would never allow someone who is doing so much for my family and people who look like me. I would never criticize and try to portray them in a light that's really not true.
Right. So I know that, like me, you have a history of speaking about, family, a man and a woman family. Okay. And, part of the what is making this so controversial is that she talked about homosexuality, and I wonder, do you feel that, taking a stand and saying that it's important, or that you believe in traditional family values, do you feel that sometimes that can be twisted and turned into saying that it's a form of homophobia or anti other forms of family?
Well, look, there's been all kinds of theories out there. People get up in the morning, they create theories, they debate topics, they think about things. Like William Shockley, he was a professor at Stanford. He received the Nobel Peace Prize, and when he was accepting an award, he gave a racist speech about the inferiority of black people. And he remained a professor at Stanford for his entire lifetime. So my thing is, anybody can come up with a theory and what they think about things. And I don't think that makes them, I don't think that you should say that you want to vilify them because they have an opinion about whether or not it's productive to engage in certain activities. I mean, bottom line, the fact is, two men having sex together don't create children. And so her advocacy is for the black family and for the black community. And so it's just a fact. It's just a simple fact.
It has to be part of the conversation. It has to be part of the conversation.
And the bottom line is, if somebody wants to carry out genocide or something similar to a Holocaust of black people, like when you see a police force in Alabama decide, a group of police officers in Alabama, they want to falsely accuse black men, thousands of them, and put them in jail. They didn't say, I wonder, is he heterosexual or homosexual? I wonder, does he wear dresses at night and sleep with white men? They're not asking that. They see a black man, they're padding their files, and they're corralling them into jail. So when Frances Cress Welsing speaks against that, she is protecting the black man, the black family, gay, straight, or otherwise. So the person that's really protecting you, you're attacking her. And I think that that's ridiculous. And on top of that, her legacy is just too great for that type of conversation. Like, I just to even speak to that, she was above that. She was a very graceful warrior. And, I think that conversation in and of itself demeans her, because she wasn't about hating anybody. And she stressed that several times. And, there it is. And then when you come to Sarah Bartman, the chief of these indigenous people in South Africa, he says that, he says reportedly that Beyonce lacks the basic human dignity to be worthy of writing her story. I think he really made that statement, and this is my opinion, is because he says if you portray the Khoi people this way, And this is a quote. He says, ignoring the fact that the Khoi people are alive and that Sarah's story would have an impact on how we are portrayed is a mistake of great magnitude. So before any confirmation has come out or the movie has come out, he is stepping forward to defend the image of his people. And that is what I want to see more of in our community. And that's what, you know, when I put out images, when I'm teaching technology for kids online, I make sure that there's Black images in that, you know, beautiful Black images of kids, you know, being involved in technology and things like that. When you do your healthy Black woman and successful Black woman, that is about having self-respect for ourselves, which was what Frances Cress Welsing was about. She said we have to respect ourselves enough to prevent our genocide by loving one another, by, you know, caring for one another, and a host of other things.
I wanted, because this came up in the conversation just before we started recording the segment, you know, we did also mention Whitney Houston. We did mention O.J. Simpson, and we did mention Bill Cosby. Although I'm not sure Bill Cosby necessarily fits, you might disagree, necessarily fits into this box. And, you know, Angela Bassett produced a movie about Whitney Houston, or at least some portion of her life. And she was accused of, you know, leaning too much on emphasizing how much of a drug addict Whitney Houston was. And then with O.J. Simpson, you know, the movie is coming out, I think, next month. It's a TV movie. And again, there's speculation about whether they're just going to turn him into some kind of a villain. And then, of course, what's currently happening right now with Bill Cosby is everybody is talking about the, you know, the rape or the sexual assault, and nobody's talking about all the other things that he's done. And I you know, I just want to say I'm tired of talking about Bill Cosby, but it is what it is. Do you think that this, you know, this bastardization of Black public figures extends to those people? Does it extend to Whitney Houston? Does it extend to O.J.? And does it even extend to Bill Cosby?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you look up the word propaganda, it's a form of communication, often biased or misleading in nature, aimed at influencing and altering the attitude of a population towards some cause, position, or political agenda in an effort to form a consensus to a standard set of belief patterns. Now, when you look at Christopher Columbus and how he's portrayed in every child's textbook, does anybody ever say how he was an advocate of raping little girls in these countries that he would just all of a sudden discover with the people sitting there? Do you hear anybody talk about Thomas Jefferson and, you know, just a host of people that they call so-called heroes, and the dirt, the absolute dirt that they have done? Do you ever hear them balance those stories? You know what I'm saying? So my thing is this. When the Whitney Houston movie came out, and again, I love my sister Angela Bassett. A lot of these people are in Hollywood, and they're in a bar. They are a guest in a system, and they have to play a role that they have been given, and that's just the bottom line for them if they want to make money, and they can't get outside that system to do, you know, things the way that it should be done. But bottom line, that movie reduce Whitney Houston to a singer with a bad drug habit. Now look at somebody like Marilyn Monroe. A lot of people could call her a straight, I'm not going to even say the words, but when you see a movie about Marilyn Monroe, she's glorified. No, she's glamorous. No, she's a sex symbol. She's not a whore. You know, she's all of these wonderful things. But Whitney Houston, she was just a great singer and a drug addict. Come on now. Whitney Houston is an icon, a national treasure. And, you know, yes, she had her issues. Everybody has their issues, but not everybody can bring across an image of Blackness and womanhood the way that Whitney Houston has done. You know what I'm saying? To just take her private life and mistakes that she made and drag that all through the media, I think it's ridiculous. And I think that there's more to be gleaned from her life than that. And if a Black person with love for their people, they can see her through the eyes of love and portray her in a way that captures all of that beauty. That's just like with Winnie Mandela. You know, when the Soweto uprisings came and she was out of jail for a lot of the 27 years Mandela was in jail, you know, people still blame her and try to put her in the media as a murderer, not remembering her carrying a movement against a insidious evil. You know, it's all about perspective, and we have to take control of that in our household, whether we're homeschooling or we have our kids in public school, in our businesses. We have to have that self-respect that Frances Cress Welsing talked to us about, to say, you know what, we are going to portray our images properly. Same thing with OJ, same thing with Bill Cosby, because again, you're not pulling, I think the guy from Seventh Heaven or the guy from Glee, you're not pulling all their stuff off the TV and showing the image of their work with shattered glass. And, you know, it's just, again, we have to have our own media streams, our own news outlets, our own everything. We have to just take care of our own narrative.
Yeah, you know, there's an amazing Nigerian writer called Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. You know, I've listened to her TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story. I've lost count of how many times I've listened to it. And she talks about, I'll just quickly say it. She talks about how they had a domestic employee in their household called Fide. And Fide was employed by her family. I think he was something like a maid or a helper or something like that. And he was from another village. And she said that every time something would happen, like they wouldn't eat their food, her mother or her father would say, you better eat all that food and be grateful. You know, Fide's family is starving. You know, just like here where people say, you know, there's children starving in Africa. And she said then this image of Fide was built where Fide was so poor, helpless, and less than. And she said then they went to Fide's home village, and to his home, and they found that it was a lovely family, happy, just like everybody else. And she said that it was very confusing for her because she had built this image of Fide based on that one story that was told about him being poor, having nothing, and so forth. So, you know, this is part of what I think comes into this is we often tell stories and tell a single story. And it can go either way. You can glorify somebody and make them untouchable, which I felt has happened with our current president. There are people who don't want to hear anything about him in terms of criticism. He's perfect. And then there's the other side where some people don't even want to hear anything about him because he's Black and they can't get past that point. He cannot lead, he cannot do anything right, and so forth. So if you tell it as a single story, then of course it's going to be unbalanced. However, when you start to tell a story, you have an intention. And that's why I thought it was important to title the segment Bastardization. You have an intention when you tell a story. So all these people we've listed, what is the intention when you tell that story? Is it to say this was a great man, or to say, oh, you think he was great? No, let me tell you something. He wasn't. And it seems like that's what happens more than anything is, well, let me tell you something about this person that you think he was so great, or that you thought she was so great. She is not. And of course, then the next level of it is there is an implication and an impact on those of us who identify with that person in some way, especially those of us who are raising children. And all they see is the bastardization of Black people, Black public images, and then the glorification of non-Black people. And then that's when you get, you know, we did that segment the other day of the little white girls who cried when they got Black dolls. And then you see little Black girls who are happy when they get a white doll. Because we're glorifying one image and bastardizing another image. And I think, you know, this was an important topic for us to cover because you and I are both obviously raising Black kids. And, you know, homeschooling them means that a large part of what they learn about life, history, the world, this country we live in, comes from us and how we shape the information that we pass on to them or allow them to see. So we've talked for a long time about this topic because, you know, it really is an important topic. But I do want to thank you, Shaquita, for joining me in this conversation. Again, this is Shaquita Graham from lovingtheblackman.com, and I am Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses from Healthy Black Woman and the Black Homeschool. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.